The Bloodweb is an integral part of Dead by Daylight that has been present in the game ever since its release back in 2016. Right now it's actually in a fairly good spot in my opinion, even though some players are somehow still saying that blood points take way too long to spend. But what if I told you that during the early days of DBD's existence, the Bloodweb was not only incredibly tedious and took absolutely forever to complete, but on top of all of that, prestiging characters would literally nerf them and give you almost nothing in return. Well, in this video we're going to take a look at how the Bloodweb changed throughout Dead by Daylight's history. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. The very original Bloodweb was incredibly large and very time consuming to complete. Progressing through it took a long time not only because of its sheer size, but also because originally there were literally no significant blood point increasing offerings whatsoever. For instance, there were no cakes, no puddings, no bloody party streamers, no envelopes, and the category ones also gave you a smaller blood point boost overall. Additionally, the 4 in-game categories for blood points were also capped at only 8,000 instead of the current 10,000 blood points. All of this was compounded by the fact that the cost of all of the different nodes that the Bloodweb spawned was not dependent on the rarity of the items, but rather on their position in the Bloodweb. For instance, all nodes on the inner circle costed 3000 BP, the ones in the middle one 5000 and the ones on the outer circle 8000. Furthermore, nodes of higher rarity had the tendency to only spawn on the outermost circle. To illustrate really how hard it was to actually progress and level up your characters, we're going to take this 5-hour-long livestream as an example. At the beginning of this stream, the player has Meg Thomas at level 44, and so after only playing and leveling her up for 5 hours straight, at the end of the stream she is still only at level 47. We also shouldn't forget to mention that during that time, the only ways to earn blood points at all were by playing the game and completing daily rituals. There was no rift through which you could earn BP rewards, as well as no matchmaking incentives, no daily login rewards, no double blood point events, and a bunch of other stuff were missing that we are now used to in the current versions of DBD. And apart from all of that, not only was overall progression much more tedious, but perks were also a lot harder to obtain, since each level of the Bloodweb would always only spawn one singular perk, with the exception of levels 2, 3 and 4, which would generate no perks at all for some reason. Now, because this 1 perk per level rule was also applied to levels 30, 35 and 40, since these levels always spawned that character's teachable perks, there wouldn't be any other perks that were generated on those levels. Now, hold on, what was that? Teachable perks? Yes, for those of you who've started to play Dead by Daylight in the last 2 years or so, back in the early days of DBD, cross-teaching perks to other characters functioned entirely differently. First of all, instead of the tier 1 versions of a character's perks being instantly unlocked on all characters after prestiging said character, there existed so-called teachable perk nodes, which after being purchased would not instantly unlock that perk at tier 1 on all characters, instead it would just simply make it able to spawn in other characters' bloodwebs. Now, if this was the way to cross-teach perks, what exactly did prestiging even do back then? Well, after grinding for literally an eternity and finally reaching level 50, you would have the choice to either continue completing and regenerating a level 50 Bloodweb or prestige. Prestiging could be done only 3 times and each time you would receive one of the 3 bloody base cosmetics for that character. However, prestiging someone would literally remove every single perk, offering, add-on or item from their inventory. Essentially, prestiging would just wipe everything from that character's inventory. Because of this, most players just found it not worth it to prestige at all, since they would have to repeat the entire incredibly tedious process of reaching level 50. Speaking of which, what exactly made the original Bloodweb so annoying to complete? Well, each node had to be purchased separately since there was no autocomplete function like today, and one single purchase literally took forever because of the fact that it would prompt a pop-up that detailed the item's description. Moreover, every level contained exactly 1 mystery box, which had a whole entire opening animation and further decreased the Bloodweb's optimization process, I guess you could say. Just everything about the Bloodweb felt incredibly clunky, slow and unresponsive. Additional things that were frustrating about the old Bloodweb were the fact that a character's unique perks weren't automatically unlocked, but rather they had to be purchased at levels 5, 10 and 15 respectively. And also perk slots 2, 3 and 4 were unlocked at tiers 15, 20 and 25 instead of 5, 10 and 15 like how I believe they are today. There were many other annoying things like the original perk tier rarity system, the existence of many unnecessary items, especially map offerings, and so on. Eventually, the developers realized that things needed to change, and so on the 25th of November 2016, with the release of patch 1.2.2, 3 very major changes were implemented. First of all, Bloodwebs would now spawn 2 perks from level 25 onwards. Second, the amount of overall nodes on a given Bloodweb was significantly reduced, which made overall Bloodwebs a lot smaller and easier to deal with. There were also various other adjustments to the Bloodweb's generation process in relation to rarity and content distribution. These changes turned out to be so important that the Bloodweb grind was eased very significantly. And so this is actually why legacy cosmetics were added a couple of updates later, which were only given to players as a reward for prestiging their characters prior to these changes. A little bit later, common and iridescent perks were removed because of some bugs relating to perk rarity distribution, which allowed for the more consistent obtaining of perks from different rarities. During DBD's 1-year anniversary, the Escape Cake, Survivor Pudding and Bloody Party Streamers offerings were added to the game. A couple of updates later, common and uncommon map offerings were removed, since there were more and more realms being implemented and the extra offerings were just cluttering players' Bloodwebs. However, one of the most important updates to the Bloodweb was made during patch 1.8.2, where the speed of the Bloodweb animations was significantly increased, the pop-up detailing the item's description was removed, and the cost of all nodes was made to be dependent on the rarity of the item rather than on their position in the Bloodweb. Several quality of life changes followed in relation to obtaining perks from the Bloodweb. For example, Bloodwebs would now always spawn at least 1 perk no matter the level, and the higher you went, the more perks a single Bloodweb would spawn per level. But by far the most important changes to the Bloodweb came with the 6.1.0 patch and the updates that followed it. This was when the entire prestige system was completely reworked, which indirectly caused the removal of so-called teachable perks. Fun fact, during the PTB, prestiging used to cost 50,000 blood points, however this was thankfully lowered to 20,000 for the live release. The next major update after this one reduced the cost of all Bloodweb nodes by 33%, therefore increasing the value of blood points in general, while the patch after that fully removed the mystery boxes from the Bloodweb, probably because they took way too long to open compared to other items. However, players started complaining that spending blood points required too much time to do, and so on the 29th of March 2023, the auto-complete function for the Bloodweb was also added to the game. Of course, during the PTB it was pretty slow, and so it was drastically sped up for the live release of the update. Ever since then, I believe that the Bloodweb has received no major changes and has stayed pretty much unchanged. Please let me know if I missed anything down in the comments, as I would really appreciate it. Well, yeah, I guess that was it. We went through the entire evolution of the Bloodweb in Dead by Daylight. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to let me know by leaving a like, and also I would be glad if you considered subscribing as well, since we're literally like a couple of subscribers away from 5k. By the time you're seeing this, we'll probably already be at 5k, or at least I hope so. Thank you all for watching and for the continued support, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!